Good evening, one and all. I hope you are all keeping well on this lovely Tuesday evening. Um, I think we might have got my colleague off guard a little there.
Sorry.
Did I realise this? We should probably coordinate on this a little bit better in future. But anyway, to be honest, I think we're both doing fairly well. Sorry, a few technical difficulties before we started this evening, so apologies all round. First things first, thank you so much for all of your feedback over the last week. It's been really cool to have some seriously meaningful insight from some people. And, as with anything, we are constantly, we're striving to make this as good a resource and as useful a resource as we can for you, the viewer, the people that are getting involved, the people that want to support. So we've got a topic to start with tonight. This evening's topic, these topics are getting to be like proper topics now, aren't they? And we've got the topic dealing with doctors. Now, particularly, we're going to try and steer away from the necessary the should we say? Oh, Liz, I've got to choose my words carefully, but we're going to try and steer away from the trans stuff. I think the dealing with doctors with trans stuff, like transition-y stuff, I think. Yeah?
Yeah, sorry.
I thought that too.
No, it's Lemsip because I've still got a bit of a cold.
Oh, bless you. Oh, well, there you go. Case in point. In fact, this might even be how we ended up with this topic, is you've got
yes, we did.
A cold. And you know what? It sucks, doesn't it? It really sucks being poorly. I don't think it matters sort of who you are or what you do, that when you get struck with that bit, the bit where your nose starts to sort of feel blocked there.
And that's where I am at the moment. But I don't feel too badly. So thank you for the people who sent messages on Twitter. Because I did post that I was feeling under the weather. And I'm feeling quite a lot better today. Which is good. So yeah. So doctor stuff. Yeah, well, kind of one. I was a bit hesitant about raising this subject, but probably because no, it was your idea. But probably because I've had actually a really good experience with my GP. So when I transitioned, and I know Sammie said let's not talk about the trans stuff, but when I transitioned, my GP didn't have a clue, which sounded like a bad start. And she referred me to the local mental health team. And bearing in mind this was 2014, and I don't know, I can't remember when they changed the rules where the GPs could actually refer directly to the GIT. So she got a letter back from the mental health team and said, no, just refer straight to Charing Cross.
Yeah.
So she did that, and she's been really incredibly. She was really incredibly supportive. She's not my GP anymore. So I had a really good experience with her. I think where I've had issues is more with GPs who, do those telephone calls. So it's the triage sort of thing.
Yeah.
I had one recently, and I'd phoned up because I'd had some blood work done, and they were trying to work out what was wrong with me because I've just been feeling quite tired and lethargic. And she said,
that is a lot.
I know. And, she said to me, well, are you going through menopause? I said, no. She said, oh, so you're still having your periods? I said, no, I'm trans. And I just thought, come on, read through my records. It's not a problem, and I don't mind that.
I mean, in fairness, I know a trans woman who recently was asked by her GP if she was pregnant. Not her regular GP, sorry, by a GP if she was pregnant. Which, isn't ideal. In fact, it wasn't so long ago, I was asked. I was asked by a A&E nurse. I mean, the thing is, I don't want to knock it. Let's be perfectly clear, because you opened this conversation with, and I totally agree with you, that you've had generally a positive experience. The professionalism is incredible.
Sorry.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. Everybody's, this. You can hear my child barking if you listen closely. But no, I had some bleeding. It was horrible, and I ended up at A&E, and yeah, the nurse there said, "Are you sure you're not on your period?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure." But I don't think that. I don't know. I mean, in some respects, I was sort of like, okay, I'll take that as a compliment to a degree. But like you said, I think that generally we should. I mean, you've had quite a good experience with your GP. They haven't really given you any trouble about anything that you've needed to do.
No, and they changed my name immediately. I mean, I've actually, I've been sat in my GP's office, surgery, whatever it is, and I've seen on the bottom of the screen saying overdue for smear test.
Oh, really?
And the thing is, I mean, a lot of the anti-trans people kind of say, oh yeah, trans women are going for smear tests. Not one member of staff that I've dealt with, and I've been for blood tests, seen nurses, and I can see it on the bottom of the screen. Not one of them has said, do you realise you're overdue? Because they know. And actually, if they said to me, oh, this come up, have you had a smear test? If they didn't know my record, I'd say no, because I'm trans, I don't need one.
No, well, this is exactly right, isn't it? Is that a lot of the time it is just a case of education. It's making sure that people actually know what's going on. I think I had another example. Considering we started out on a positive, this is taking quite a quick start. No, I was at A&E not so long ago. Again, I spend a lot of time at the hospital now. I come to think of it, I'm accident prone. I don't know what to say. This was. Oh, it was the day after Canterbury Pride, and I probably don't need to draw you a picture of exactly how or why it happened, but I fell over at Pride and managed to break a rib, and this all happened at the same time as I had this like really horrible rash as well, like down there, like in my groin. It's horrible, and so I was sat. Basically, I couldn't really move properly because I've got a broken rib, and then I couldn't really walk properly because I had this really quite painful rash. I've just realised that I've just used the words quite painful rash and groin on the internet, but whatever, it's fine. It's these are medical
things happen.
It's fine. I'm not worried. There's no shame. Yeah, so I'm there at the hospital. And eventually I got called through to see a doctor. And he asked me a question, which is a sensible question. Taking medical history is important. Wanted to know what medication I was on, which I think is probably quite important. Particularly if it's a rash, it could be some sort of reactory thing. So, I said to him, well, I'm not on any sort of acute medication, but I take HRT in terms of estrogen, blah blah blah. He's like, oh, why'd you take estrogen? No, I'm like, well, because my body doesn't produce any estrogen because I'm transgender and blah blah. Oh, he goes, what? Well, there was this brief moment I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I'm passing with flying colours, I think is the phrase right now. Or he was just like massively confused about the whole situation. As the conversation progressed, I became perhaps a little less comfortable with the way that he was dealing with it. And when we were talking about
a load of socks on my radiator.
Sorry, you've got what now?
I just pulled my screen down and revealed stuff drying on my radiator.
Honestly, we've had this conversation repeatedly. Yeah, here is perfectly fine. If you look anywhere else outside of this little box, it's absolute chaos. Okay, we're deliberately aiming for this. But no, he. So I'm there, and then he came out with this phrase, which again, I suppose I can understand why he was questioning it. The way he phrased it, being a transgender, I assume you've had multiple sexual partners. And I
that is wrong on so many levels.
There was a lot of wrong in that sentence, as it happens. I think my natural sort of candor, if you like, took a charge in the situation, and I think I said something to the effect of, "No, actually, no, I'm married," which in essence means I have 0 sexual partners. That's what being married is like. It's it's just off the cards after 10 years. But tried to make light of it. But no, he really didn't want to know. And to be honest, he didn't want to look at my rib. If it's broken, it's broken. Had a look at the rash and said, "No, you just need to go to the gum clinic." Which I was, well. Okay, fair enough. There might be some peculiar circumstance where you might pick up an STD without being in that sort of position, but I was like, pretty sure we weren't talking about an STD here. He didn't want to know. From the second I told him that I was trans, his attitude really, really changed. He was just basically rude. And so now I'm in this situation where I'm there. I'm in agony. I was being a bit of a wimp, granted, with the rib, but it was really painful. I could barely walk because of what was going on.
I've broken 3 ribs.
I know
how much pain is involved.
It sucks, right? And I had the whole thing going on, down there as well. Not good. Not good.
It sounds, that in that situation, it sounds to me like that doctor was not acting in a professional manner at all.
Well, I felt a bit like that about it. Obviously this doctor will remain nameless, but I did feel a bit like that about it. So I popped out. I came out of A&E and I went into the out of hours bit that's like next door to A&E, and explained and said, "Listen," and they've said I need to go to the gum clinic, and I was practically in tears. And they said, "Look, don't worry about it. We've got a doctor here."
Gum clinic.
It's the gyno and STD clinic. It's the clap clinic.
Sorry, I didn't know. I didn't
knock it. No. Well, don't ask me how I know. It's a long story. Probably because I know people that have to go there. The amount of friends that I've had over the years that are like, "It's a really embarrassing favour. Can you take me to the gum clinic?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, that's fine." They must really, to be honest, wonder about me because I've been in there with quite a few different people over the years. They must wonder, whatever. Anyway, my point was, the story goes, I saw a different doctor, and she was lovely, and she could see that I was, obviously in quite a bit of discomfort and pain. And she had a look at this. She said, 1 second, she goes, "Oh yeah, you got shingles." I'm like, "Sorry?" She goes, "Yeah, no, to 100% it's shingles. Here you go. This is what you need." A cyclovir she gave me. There you go. And sure enough, it was shingles, and the cyclovir cleared it right up. She was quite cross. What basically happened in that situation, and the impression I certainly got, and I think she did as well, this other doctor did as well, was that the first doctor had said, "Trans person, clearly got an STD, just been putting it about a bit." That to me displays a level of ignorance that I think is, well, it's disgusting, quite frankly.
It's preconceived ideas which are wrong.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But then I don't know. In some respects, I suppose there probably are a lot of people they see that turn up and say, "I've got this weird rash," and they're like, "Have you?" I can imagine it does come up quite a bit.
Yeah,
it's got an acronym. And indeed, I do appreciate the fact that when you're trying to rule something out medically, that it's probably quite a good idea to go through like the list of potential problems. Sorry,
there are appropriate ways to ask these questions.
Yeah, but there's ways and ways, isn't there? And indeed, 100%, the doctor's attitude changed massively after I had to point out that I was transgender.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, for the vast majority of times that I've dealt with the NHS, it's been absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I have had, and I was talking to you about this earlier, Sammie, an endocrinology appointment.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. No, we've spoken about this at length.
Yeah. So what annoys me about these is it's a different person every time I see them. But one of them in particular was this guy, and he was obsessed with my boobs to the point that I could tell he was staring at them. But I was trying to see if I could wangle a progesterone prescription, and I failed dismally again. But to the point he said to me, "Are your boobs real?" Oh my God, hold on, I'm just going to go on mute.
Okay, hang on, right. So whilst Liz is off fixing Richard, the dog, which I think is a cool name for a dog, by the way, Richard. Yeah, no, she was telling me this story earlier. I won't steal her thunder, but she was telling me this story earlier, and yeah, I mean, I suppose it's kind of the beginning of sort of there's a misogynistic undertone to it, definitely. But I don't know. I think we need to try because I think in that instance, Liz was trying to get the doctor to issue progesterone as part of her cross-sex hormone therapy, and doctors they're not particularly keen on progesterone in cross-sex hormone therapy. So yeah, it's not easy. As it happens, I've got my own story. When I can see that Liz has taken herself off mute again, she gives me a thumbs up, then I'll let her finish telling hers. But we've got a thumbs up. Hang on, right. So was I telling the story roughly correctly?
Sorry.
You weren't listening.
No, because the reason Ricky was barking was that I let my friend borrow my car. Don't worry, she's totally insured on it. She hasn't got her own car because she needed to go shopping.
Yeah.
She's just come back to give me the keys back. And whenever anyone comes in the house, Ricky gets excited.
Okay.
So yeah, please read.
I think I was sort of telling your story for you because we've had this discussion before, and you. I think we were at the stage you were trying to get some progesterone, and doctors aren't particularly good at giving people progesterone.
Yes.
Liz, do you want to take a moment? I'll tell you what, because I've got a progesterone story. Shall I tell my progesterone story while you
I don't know. Hold on a second. Fran, would you like to say hello to the audience? This is one of my great friends, Fran, who I
Hello, Fran. No, Sam, sorry, not Sophie.
I get called everything. You wouldn't believe some of the things I get called, honestly. Sam is pretty good compared to most of the stuff I get. So yeah,
this woman has been a friend since before I transitioned, and she's been steadfast, and she's a real bestie.
Not too fast in the car, though, I hope. But,
What was that?
Not too fast in the car, hopefully.
No,
that's
never.
Cool. Never, no. Yeah.
No, driving Miss Daisy, this one.
To watch. I always know whenever I lend my car to anybody, when my wife drives my car, you should see like the fuel economy goes down and the average speed seems to go back up. I don't know why that is. It's because I drive like a really old lady. Anyway, we were telling progesterone stories, and so yeah, I mean, I suppose really I've got to start. Have I got to start at the beginning? Have I got to do the whole story from the beginning for it to make sense? Do you want to finish yours? The doctor looked at your boobs too much, and then he was quite rude about them, wasn't he?
Well, yes, he asked me if they were really mine, and I just felt the whole
really yours. Like no, I borrowed them and bought them
fake. And I felt really uncomfortable about the whole situation. But it's like you're kind of torn between I need this support, And if I complain, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But anyway, he turned out to be harmless. And actually, the next appointment, I had this wonderful. Let me just go on mute.
Okay. Right. I think that the point of the story here is that Liz felt very uncomfortable and felt that the doctor was putting her in an uncomfortable situation with what is in essence misogyny. And that's not on. That's not a trans problem. That's a general problem. That is not on. It's just poor conduct. But anyway, let me tell you a little bit about my story of my doctors. Whilst we weren't really going to do too much in terms of transition stuff, we are going to cover it a little bit. The first instance when I first decided I needed to speak with a doctor, I thought the best thing to do is just to make a phone call, to get on the phone and get on the phone. And so that's what I did. I picked up the phone and I phoned the local surgery. And like so many of these surgeries, you have to go through this whole reception, screening, whatever it is, process if you want to get. Now, I wasn't feeling very much. My leg wasn't full. I didn't have measles. I remember saying to them, I need to speak to somebody about my gender identity and about gender dysphoria. Which, all right, fairly complicated terms. Has all the sound gone, Wendy, or is it just Liz's sound that's gone? Because I think it looks like my sound's still up and running. Or it should be. Can you just let me know, Wendy, please? Liz, apparently you've killed the sound for the whole stream. Oh yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I'm working. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, no, I think it's it's you. You killed the sound for the whole stream. I don't.
Sorry.
The professionalism today is out of this world good, isn't it?
I know.
So I'm not gonna lie, we started a little bit late. I'm sorry. It's not been a particularly easy day for either of us. But nevertheless, we're still here and we're still doing it. Anyway, so the upshot was, I said to her, I need to speak to somebody about my gender identity or gender dysphoria, and she sort of laughed at me. She scoffed at me to the effect of, "What's that?"
I am sat in my bed right now. Sorry,
okay.
I've just removed myself from the noise.
Okay, I've seen these sort of shows. Hi, Anita. Hi, Samuel, and hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
The chat seems to be working, I think, at least now. Anyway, no, she laughed. I'm like, it took me a long time to get to that stage where I felt ready to talk to somebody about it, and she laughed at me, and that was my real first sort of medical experience as a trans person, and it was frightening. It was, upsetting, and I won't lie, I cried. I hung up the phone and I cried. I actually crashed the car driving back because I was so upset. And then it took me probably about 2 weeks before I could get round to sort of get the courage up to call again and try again. And so, but I did. The important thing is I did. And the second time, I felt like I had a little bit more on my side because I opened the conversation with, "Listen, I tried to call 2 weeks ago and somebody just laughed at me. And oh my goodness, no, that's terrible. That shouldn't happen. How can we help you, sir?" I'm like, oh, okay. They didn't know. Can't be helped, right? It doesn't really matter. We're not going to get upset about it. But anyway, whatever. And we all went from there. and we booked an appointment. They were quite good about it. They asked me if I wanted a female or a male doctor, and I'm like, I don't know, just a doctor, a qualified doctor, please. I don't really care about their genitals. I just want them to be qualified, if possible. Oh, we don't have any specialists. Like, well, probably doesn't need a specialist because I've done a lot of research. You know, I know my way around it. And so they put me an appointment with this lovely lady doctor who shall remain nameless, but she was really quite lovely. Like a lot of people, however, she was lovely but useless. Do you know people like that in your life? Lovely but useless. You're not useless. Don't be like that. No. And I remember sitting down with her, and it was quite nerve-wracking. I won't lie, it was quite nerve-wracking sitting down with this GP. And I'm sat there, and I thought, you know what? There's no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to say it. I said, look, there's no easy way for me to say this, so I'm just going to say it. I'm transgender, and I need your help. And her face was, she didn't really speak immediately. There wasn't, oh, or anything. It was just this face of, I can't even do it. I would describe it as absolute shock and horror, very finely veiled with professionalism, very finely indeed. But you know, after that, there was this really uncomfortable silence. I don't do uncomfortable silences, as you might have guessed from my rambling nonsense. And so I remember saying to her, I said, look, don't worry about it. It's my first time too. We'll get through this together. Which broke the ice a little bit, cut the tension a little bit, I think. And that was pretty much the attitude that I've taken to sort of my transition healthcare from the very beginning, is that, you know, if you want to work with a doctor to achieve something, you have to work with them. I mean, you think how many unique conditions or people or anything that a doctor must see in a day, a week, a month. The odds of them being absolutely perfectly capable of dealing with every single situation are pretty slim. Yeah, I mean, the further you go along certain routes, the more you find that doctors specialize or they're fragmented in their skill sets. So knocking up at a GP and expecting them to know absolutely everything about transition is pretty unlikely, isn't it?
Well, I think this goes with any profession.
Yeah,
you know, you go through university and come out with your degree, but you're still learning. You're learning constantly, and
all right, little Miss Middle Class with her degree.
I didn't do that.
It's on video for the whole world to see for the rest of all time.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I'm so sorry. But no, the key point is you go through school, you have to do exams, you have to memorize things, and you go to university. Some of us do. I went to university, not a red brick university, just an old poly, which are still fucking amazing.
He's playing it right down now. Playing it
but look, you know, when it comes to any profession, we're still learning. I work in IT. I'm still learning because there are new things constantly, and it's the same in the medical profession. There are new ways, new things.
Of course there are.
So, you know, it's and what annoys me is that GPs are reluctant to.
Some GPs are.
Some GPs are reluctant to just get on the horse and just say, right, I'm going to help these people.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair, actually. I think that there's, I mean, as it happens, that particular GP, she is the person who helped me with my referral, but I had to give her the link and sort of where the forms were and explain to her exactly how to do it. And, you know, basically she just signed it off and sent it, and I did all the work for it. But she did it. I can't knock it. She did it, right? As it happens, she left the practice not that long after my referral went off. And then I eventually had another GP. I asked that first GP if she could recommend another GP at the practice, like maybe she could do a bit of a handover so I didn't have to go through the whole explaining everything again. She wasn't interested, so we just picked another GP and got on with it. But it turns out that GP, he was doing more of what you were saying. He was actually being quite proactive in helping me sort my care out. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier was around progesterone. And he's no longer my current GP. It changed not so long ago, actually. My current one is still supporting what was agreed. He took the time to do his own research in terms of progesterone. He looked at, a lot more of, he looked at a lot more in terms of modern studies as opposed to some 10-year-old studies of cisgender women. He was looking at, some more modern studies that were relating to trans people and progesterone and cross-sex hormone therapy. He had a chat with an endocrinologist with whom he trained, and eventually he had a chat with the rest of the staff in the practice, and they came to a decision between them that it would be okay if he had explained the risks to me, and we'd had that conversation and we'd agreed, on a trial basis to go with it. And so that's what we did. And that's exactly how healthcare can work. It's how it should work, and it's how it can work. And, at the end of the day, I got the right treatment, got the right monitoring in place. The sad truth is that in a lot of cases, though, you're right. People won't jump on that horse, I think was the phrase.
Yeah.
And try and help people out. They're just not interested in doing it.
Yeah, and I think my experience in terms of the endocrinology team is that I see a different person every time, and I know it's brilliant that the NHS fund this. But what I find is that everyone I see, I ask them the same questions, I give them the same evidence, and they'll say they'll look at it, and I know I'm just being fobbed off, and this is where it gets hard.
But I think that there's going to be a problem, isn't there? I think if you were seeing the same person over and over again, then they'd be more likely to help you. I mean, I suppose it's like anything, isn't it? In what I do for a living, I do consultancy work, and part of that consultancy can take the form of helping people achieve certification to various international standards and really, really boring stuff. I know. Can you imagine how boring my life is? You don't need to imagine. You know how boring it is.
I know what you've been involved in.
Anyway, well, no, there's some exciting stuff at the moment, actually. We'll talk about that in a bit. That's really exciting. And I'm excited, quite to share my news. But no, anyway, a lot of this certification, it takes place on sort of a rolling annual basis. So you'll see somebody from one of the certification teams once a year, for argument's sake. And the amount of clients I have where they see a different person every single year, and you feel like you're banging your head against the wall, because you spend the first half of the day explaining what it is. This is somebody who's coming new into your business, and you spend the first half of your day explaining to them what it is you do, and you miss out on actually getting to anything of any real value, because you're still sort of having that top level discussion. And healthcare can be a lot like that. I think people are less, particularly in the medical profession, they're less likely to go out on a limb if they're not sure that they're going to be able to follow up with you. Which is why I think it was quite important for me with my GP, at least. I don't have a separate endo at the minute, but with my GP at least, it was quite important to make sure that there was somebody there who I knew was going to be there consistently, not just for continuity in terms of it's nice to have a friendly face, but continuity in terms of if they decide on, if we decide between us, on a treatment plan, that they'd be there to help follow it up, and I wouldn't have to keep justifying their decision.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
I
I think we should.
Is that a pro tip? If you can get a GP, we should do a tip. Here's a tip. I should flash it up.
Yes.
Try
No,
to get a GP that you can actually stay with at your practice.
We've got a couple of comments on the feed.
Oh, I haven't got that screen open. It's been a really bad. This has been a really bad session. I'm so sorry, guys.
I will come back to Samuel's comment, but I'd just like to say to Anita, it's really amazing that you've helped your AMP to, try and understand things and move things forward, and that's what we all try to do. And it's brilliant that you're doing that, and thank you so much, because you're helping other people.
Absolutely. In fact, funny enough, the GP I'm now dealing with is the clinical lead at the practice, and we've been chatting about actually me going in one lunchtime maybe and having a chat through some issues that they might not be aware of in terms of trans healthcare, just to give a bit of insight. It's no different to why we do this at the end of the day, is it? It's just a conversation to say, look, these are issues that are faced by a community that you don't know an awful lot about.
But it takes individuals to make change.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And Anita, that's brilliant.
She's doing so well.
Yeah.
I love Anita, by the way. You've not met Anita, I don't think, have you?
No, I haven't.
No, we met at we met at Sparkle, didn't we, Anita? I think you had Edna with you as well. And they're so lovely. They're just such a lovely couple. Anyway, moving on slightly.
Sorry.
What are you doing to me?
It's all right. This cold and cough I've got. Right. So I just want to just mention back to Samuel's comment. So Samuel said a little off topic, but his work colleagues are still not using the right pronouns. I just want to say, Samuel, I think have you spoken to HR? You need to address this with people who can control the help you control the situation.
Yeah, I mean it's so difficult, isn't it? That I think that perhaps sometimes it does take a face-to-face conversation, but part of the fact that, and I know Samuel fairly well actually, Liz, and part of the fact that Samuel's out at work and that HR do know about Samuel's transition, part of the benefit of that is that it means you can go to them if you're having a persistent problem, which you would consider bullying. But in terms of people not using the right pronouns, people slip up all the time. I mean, Liz, do people, probably not an awful lot, but people still slip up with me. Do they still slip up with you from time to time? Or?
No, well, I mean, you're
going to say no. Is it just me in this?
Oh, excuse me. No, I'm 5 years down the line, 6 years down the line.
Yeah.
So, but yes, in the first year, absolutely, people still did slip up. I'm so sorry. I've just had this horrible cold and cough.
There's more people. I've got to be honest. It isn't new people. It is generally people that I knew prior to transition. They're more likely to slip up just because of old habits. Generally, new people is just not an issue. So, I think I'm not just saying just give it time as a bit of a cop out, but you've got a decent HR department behind you there. Talk to them. I mean, no, I'm sorry. No, it's not a hate crime. Using somebody's pronouns incorrectly, Anita, I'm really sorry to do this, is not a hate crime in its own right. Would you?
Yeah, and actually, I just want to say, so when I first came out, I did so in my workplace. The people I worked with did slip up.
Yeah,
you could see on their face that they were really horrified at making that mistake.
Exactly.
Whereas I know, I mean, it was family members who did it deliberately.
Yeah.
So I think it's you have to be aware of where people are coming from.
Absolutely. I mean, there's
If
a
people
huge
have
difference
known you for a long
between, like you say, a mistake.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's people who've known you for a long time at work,
Mm.
there's this. I guess it's not dissimilar to. Sorry, I'm finding it so hard to speak at the moment.
No, that's okay.
I would say it's not dissimilar to if someone changed their name because of marriage.
No, that's right.
You keep referring to them as the old name because you're just used to. Sorry.
No, right. You go and hang on. Cough your guts up for a second, because I think I get what you're saying. And you know, we've got to be very careful. I think as a community that sometimes we can turn what is a genuine mistake, something whilst people are, you know, making freudian slips, for want of a better word, where they're struggling or they need to just remember to say the right word. Forces of habit. There's a massive difference between that and somebody coming up to you with a, I don't know, should we say some deliberately abusive, offensive language, or indeed physical, which is when, for me, I think that's when it starts to sort of look down that hate crime route. The last thing we want is just for everybody to see us as being, you know, a really angry community of people who won't have any sort of tolerance. I mean, guys, you know, we preach tolerance and acceptance for you know, all the time, don't we? And sometimes that tolerance has to work both ways a little bit. There's a big difference between someone saying the wrong word and what is a hate crime, in my opinion. Even that doctor, in fact, whilst I'm trying to sort of like anchor a little bit back onto topic here, right? Even that doctor that turned around and said, as a transgender, I assume you've had multiple sexual partners. Now, that is outright discrimination. Yeah, he is basing that entirely on a prejudice. Sorry, it's a prejudice. It's not discrimination. It's a prejudice. Yeah. As it happens, the fact that I feel that his attitude then affected the treatment I got, that is discrimination. And discriminating against somebody based on your idea of their gender identity, that is quite literally a hate crime. Yeah, but to a degree, he's just an idiot. Some people are just idiots. I'm sure he didn't mean those words to come out like that, and I'm sure if he'd realised how upset I would be by the phrase a transgender, what? Transgender is not a gender. A transgender, I'm not a transgender cucumber. I mean, for heaven's sake. But the point is that I mean, you know, I don't think he was, if he was committing a hate crime, I don't think he was deliberately committing a hate crime and just getting angry and aggressive and, did you just assume my gender? You know, it gets nobody anywhere. I mean, it's a phrase I hate to use, but the R in TERF is radical. And you know, not that there's anything particularly radical about being an old bigot. But there's you're not fighting fire with fire is never going to make the situation any better, is it? To be honest, you know, it's at the end of the day, some people are stupid, some people are ignorant, some people use the wrong words. Honestly, hand on heart, I think over the years I've been a very angry person, and now I find that I'm a lot happier when I try and deal with these things with kindness as opposed to just unnecessary, over the top aggression. But I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm mellowing as I get older.
Oh, you are.
Maybe it's the issue. The lack of testosterone, more to the point. Right. Okay, guys. We are at the end of the day.
So,
what, honey?
Just.
Oh, Liz. Right. Listen, guys. It's what are we? We are 10 to 8. Right. I'd like to personally. I take responsibility. For the fact that this hasn't gone entirely to plan tonight. We've ran a little over. Frankly, as you can probably tell from this one over, I'm quite glad that we're in separate locations because clearly got the plague. But hopefully, Liz, you've got some interesting insight into how to go deal with doctors now that you're plague ridden. My advice would be just to stay away from absolutely everybody.
I'll just email you my plague.
Well, I'll ask. I'll get on to Fran in a bit, and I'll ask her to paint a big red cross on the door so that nobody comes in. Okay. Right. On that note, hopefully, if that one gets a little bit healthier and I start to feel a little more human as well, we will see you all again next week on time if all goes to plan. But what I would like to say before we go, and I think Liz, you definitely wanted to try and chime in on this as well, is that we are guessing still here. We are guessing at what we can help you with, and the whole point of this Q&A is that it's not just about what we want to talk about. It's about what you want to hear and what you want to ask. So if you do have any questions, please remember, guys, you can DM either of us at any time, or you can send it off to the group at Trans Q&A. You can tag it. We will monitor, and we do monitor. Liz, just shush, just die quietly for 2 seconds. We will monitor all of the hashtags you can see around the screen as well. They are being monitored for your questions, one and all. And indeed, please just feel free to drop us a note whenever. Get involved in the conversation. Join the chat. If you haven't got anything, if you think there's other people that might be interested, people that, might have questions and you think that maybe they could benefit from having a chat with some people about it, then cool, brill, bring them on. If you've got opinions, if you think we're both absolutely full of it, and I don't just mean full of cold, I mean full of nonsense, then fine, let us know. But the whole point here is that this is an interactive process. We need you girls, you guys, all of you to get in touch with us and to share the word that we are doing this. And for the record, just tell everyone it's 7-ish in future. And on that note, Liz, anything else that you want to add, or any more coughs before we go?
No.
She can't even talk anymore. Bless her. Thank you so much for doing this, Liz. I know you feel rough, so thank you so much. It's much appreciated. Right, one and all, it's been a pleasure as ever. So we'll catch up with you all soon, no doubt. Any comments, feedback, please remember, guys, like, subscribe, comment, feedback, share. Speak to you all soon. Bye. Are you still dying? Are you not dead yet?
Oh, yes.
I don't even know. Have we gone? I think we're still live.
We are still live.
Oh.